We've all heard of the overdone Hollywood setups. A family moves into a house only to find evil lurking at every turn. Or a group of fearless, naive kids go looking for trouble in a remote location and they don't come back. The internet is full of hokey parodies. It's hard to tell Photoshop from reality. At this point, it's easy to write off all supposed paranormal activity as completely fake. But how do skeptics explain multiple similar stories of weird behavior at historical sites? How do you explain that feeling where the hair stands up on the back of your neck? Is that shadow you see out of the corner of your eye actually real, or is it your imagination? Should you always be scared when you feel like you're not alone in a room, but there's no one else there?
So I really don't turn away like people who are very skeptics. I find it kind of interesting in a way and a bit challenging for me as a medium. It's not that I necessarily want to prove to them that life after death exists, but that hopefully I can plant a seed in hopes that maybe they can get some relief. I get being logical is good for certain things, but how can you explain some of these things? Like, you can only use so much, like, electronic technology or anything to really prove that they exist. It's sort of a personal experience in a way.
I went to Massachusetts, famously chock full of unexplained happenings and sites rumored to be haunted, to see if I could dig up any ghosts that weren't camera shy. After a lot of research, I decided on 3 spots to profile. I borrowed a friend, laced up my boots, and headed out to find some ghosts. The first spot we went to was Dogtown Commons off Route 28 near Gloucester, Massachusetts. From around 1650 to 1750, Dogtown was a well-known pre-revolutionary community. Home to some of Gloucester's most prominent families, the common settlement was known for agriculture, timbering, and transportation. But after the Revolutionary War, the flow of economics in the area moved closer to the harbor, and the settlement fell into decline. Many of the Dogtown men died in the war, leaving behind a village of widows, who turned to family dogs for protection, resulting in the name Dogtown. A bunch of notable characters later moved to the settlement, including witches, prostitutes, and a matador who was gored to death in the town. But visitors to the area now report frequent equipment failure and an eerie silence surrounding the 3,600-acre stretch. Some report seeing a woman in black wandering through the woods, as well as a large black cat weaving through the trails. Unfortunately, our experience at Dogtown was fairly anticlimactic and fraught with some logistical difficulties. We are a little bit lost. There were 5 square miles for us to explore, and because we got lost, we explored probably every square inch of that property, and we didn't experience any haunted phenomena. We saw no women in black, no cats, and my equipment worked just fine. I did notice an almost overpowering silence in Dogtown, but I think that's mostly because the settlement is essentially a forest, and pretty far off the beaten path, not because it's full of evil spirits. There was only one point in the afternoon when something unexpected happened.
So right as I was talking about whether or not I believe in ghosts, we heard this big, crash. It was and something ran away. It was probably a deer because, it makes sense that it was a deer. But that was pretty good timing, and it was pretty terrifying.
It was probably a deer. Probably. The next stop on our haunted tour was Salem. Everyone is familiar with Salem's rich history of witch hysteria and the surrounding supernatural energy lingering throughout the town. 19 women were hanged and 1 man was pressed to death during the 1629 Salem witch trials. Just about every long-standing building in Salem has had a ghost sighting at some point or another. My friend Dave has lived in Salem his entire life and gave me a rundown on what living in Salem is really like.
I've lived in Salem for my entire 28 years of existence. If I go out of state somewhere, and they're like, oh, where are you from? And tell them from Salem, Mass, and they're like, oh, so you must be a witch, huh? But there's the old burial ground in Salem, and that's where the witches that were hung during the whole hysteria are buried there. And so that's a big tourist attraction, and me and my friends used to hide behind graves in there and scare people in the middle of at night when they were walking through.
Most of the historical sites in Salem, like the Hawthorne Hotel and the House of the Seven Gables, were either closed or unavailable to me to walk in and start filming. Salem has really monetized their history, and as such, they don't want to let you explore their haunted sites for free. However, we did spend a significant amount of time in the old Burying Point Cemetery, where a lot of the witches burned in the trials are rumored to be buried. It had a stark, eerie feel to it, but it wasn't the hair-raising feel of being in the presence of ghosts. I even put down a voice recorder next to one of the graves in hopes of picking up some otherworldly audio. But all I recorded was the evening wind and the crunch of leaves under our feet. My final site was to check out an actual haunted house in Tewksbury, Massachusetts. Shane, Cameron, and Jared Doherty are 3 brothers who grew up living in a house on Chandler Street. Since they were kids, they've grown accustomed to strange things happening throughout their house.
Say you're walking home one night on the street and you just sort of have that feeling that somebody's behind you watching you. It's not necessarily a bad feeling, but you know that someone's there. There's been plenty of times where I've just, caught something out of the corner of my eyes, like a bunch of times, like walked into a room real quick and thought I've seen somebody sitting on the couch.
It's not terrifying in the way that I feel in danger. It's more of just like, who's there, or what's going on, or is something going to happen?
The way I believe it is, if they were bad spirits, they'd be trying to get you out of the house. They'd be protective of whatever, home or property or wherever they are. They'd be very protective over it, and they'd be giving you signs to get out.
That the door's gonna shut on me, or something's gonna come out, or something's gonna be thrown, or something. I just feel like I'm going to see something.
I was talking to my brother, and he said it was one morning where I was at work. He had the day off. I was at work. My dad was out, and he said he just heard all this commotion upstairs. It sounded like somebody walking around. He heard the toilet flush, the sink turn on, and he went upstairs to go check it out. And my dad wasn't home, and I wasn't home, and he said his immediate reaction was, "Oh, it's just ghost," and went back to bed. It's almost sort of it's just funny to us now. It's that's just what it is.
At first, I struggled with whether or not to believe the stories the boys were describing. Couldn't a lot of this be explained by the creaks of an old house? Maybe their own imaginations were making them feel creeped out by spirits that weren't there. But as I researched their testimony, I found a lot of what they were describing coincided with established methods of spirit contact experienced by trained psychics.
Have you ever walked into a place and just got this really weird vibe? Yeah, that's its aura. That's the energy field that it's emitting out. And you can feel it because you also have an aura or an energy field. And so these energy fields penetrate, and you can get impressions or intuitive feelings or hunches about things.
There was only one way to find out the truth, to test it for myself. It's April 11th, it's about 9:45 p.m. on a Friday night. I'm going to leave this camera rolling for the next hour, and I have a voice recorder going in the other scarier part. There is only one door into the basement, which I monitored from the upstairs. No one entered or exited that room for the hour in which I had the camera and voice recorder set up. The hidden camera didn't pick up anything out of the ordinary, even when I turned the lights off. But the voice recorder in the corner of the basement was a different story. What you are about to hear has been amplified through audio editing, but the actual recorded sounds have not been altered in any way, shape, or form. So how do you explain that?